how do you deal with it? How do you keep busy?
Fewer than 100 are based here, where there's normally a hive of construction activity and scientific expeditions. But there's a pandemic to keep at bay.
The Australian Antarctic stations are small enclosed units.
An outbreak here could spell disaster.
There's a real risk that we actually couldn't continue operations and may have to evacuate or close the station.
One doctor per station keeps an eye on Australians at Casey, Davis, Mawson and Macquarie Island bases. The population on Antarctica has been frozen out from the rest of the world. Early on in the pandemic, visitors were screened and quarantined for 14 days. Social distancing was required on visiting cargo ships. Then the visitor program was put on ice.
The last 6 months have been a really challenging 6 months for the Antarctic Division.
While expeditions are off, scientists from the Australian Antarctic Division are still busy in the labs, but turning their hands to other tasks like making hand sanitizer.
We had some of the chemicals in our store because we use them to preserve biological specimens.
Dubbed ISO Lotion, it's helping charities at home.
This enables us to get to where the people really are, and that's working with people on the street.
And while most of Australia starts to emerge from some form of isolation, it's been unusual for those hardened to time alone.
It is strange, like reading about all these sort of issues about not going to the beach, not hanging out with 3 people, etc. When down here we just carry on as usual, thinking we are 3.
In fact, on the icy continent, where temperatures can reach minus 50, there have been perks.
We can hang out in the bar, go to the gym, enjoy a group physical training session, a couple of people in the sauna, we've got a jacuzzi down here as well, so there's no issue social distancing.
And when the internet allows it, they can check back in on life in Australia, a sense of longing greater than usual.
It's hard to feel that you can make a difference in health.
In the months ahead, when a frozen winter ends and a new summer dawns, these men and women will venture back into the unknown, much like the post-coronavirus world, which awaits family and friends back home.
We'll be back sometime towards the end of this year for next summer, and we look forward to seeing you all then.
Jonathan Kersley.
The Canadian Prime Minister has taken a knee in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement worldwide. Justin Trudeau made a surprise appearance at an anti-racism rally in Ottawa wearing a black mask. Some protesters at the rally shouted, "Stand up to Trump." But to breaking news on that protest action in the city tonight, crowds are scuffling with police at Central Station. It appears several protesters have been hit with capsicum spray as they participate in the Black Lives Matter movement. The strong police presence remains in place at the train station. One teenager has been arrested. It's understood he's accused of assaulting a female police officer. Well, coming up, Natalia with the weekend weather forecast.
Our solar system. Have you ever looked up into the sky and wondered what was there? Higher than the birds, past the clouds, and farther than the moon, a whole host of fascinating objects fill in outer space. Let's imagine for a moment that we can leave the Earth behind and explore the solar system that surrounds it. We call it the solar system because everything in it is centered around the sun, and solar means something to do with the sun. The sun is a star, just like many of the stars that you can see in the night sky, just many times closer to us. Still, the sun is very, very far away from the Earth, almost 93 million miles away. That's why it looks so small, even though it's the biggest object in the solar system. In fact, the sun makes up more than 99% of the mass in the solar system. If you put all of the planets, moons, asteroids, comets, and everything else in the solar system together, they would make up less than 1/4% of it. The sun is so big that is more than 100 times wider than the Earth, and if it were a giant jar, you could fit more than 1 million Earths into it. More than that, the sun is what holds the solar system together. Its massive gravity is what keeps the Earth and all the other planets circling around it instead of drifting off into space. The sun is also what allows us to live on Earth. Without the sun, there would be no heat. There would be no light. Plants could not grow. Water would freeze, and nothing could survive. The sun gives us heat and light because it is always burning. It is a giant ball of gas, mostly hydrogen and helium, and it burns at millions of degrees in its center. Let's leave the sun now to explore the planets. As we move away from the sun, the first planet we encounter is Mercury. Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system, much smaller than Earth, and one of only 5 planets you can see from Earth using nothing but your eyes. Of course, it won't look much like a planet. It looks more like a bright star, and many nights you can see it close to the horizon near sunrise and sunset. Mercury is a lot like our moon. It's small and has a rocky surface with craters on it. It has no moon of its own and no air to breathe. You probably wouldn't enjoy a visit to Mercury, since temperatures are boiling hot in the sun and freezing cold in the shade. Something interesting about Mercury is that it is the fastest planet to go around the sun. It only takes 88 days. Next is Venus, the second planet. Some people call Venus Earth's sister because the two planets are very close in size and gravity, but they are very different on the surface. First of all, it is very hot. Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system. It's not as close to the sun as Mercury, but its thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide helps it to trap the heat and stay warmer than its neighbor. It has a thick atmosphere, but it is not one you could breathe. It is mostly made of carbon dioxide, and there are clouds of sulfuric acid. Venus might not be fun to visit, but it is beautiful to look at. It is the second brightest object in the night sky. The only thing brighter is the moon. If you are looking at a sunrise or a sunset and suddenly notice what looks like a very bright star, you are probably looking at Venus. After Venus comes Earth, the third planet from the sun. Of course, you know all about Earth because that's the planet where we live. Earth is what's called a Goldilocks planet because it's not too hot and not too cold. It is just right. As far as we know, Earth is the only planet to have living things. Let's leave Earth again for a moment, though, and visit Mars, the fourth planet from the sun. Mars is known as the red planet because iron oxide, a material like rust, in the soil, gives it a reddish color. Mars is smaller than Venus and the Earth, but larger than Mercury. It is cold and rocky, with a thin atmosphere made of carbon dioxide and oxygen. There is water ice on Mars. Scientists are very interested in Mars because they think that people...
Sorry that the video got paused. It'll take a long time, so that's all. It will be continued. Bye.